have, over the last decade, lived in this era of cheap capital. And when there is abundant capital chasing few good ideas, chances are investors will end up expressing too much enthusiasm for ideas that have not been subject to serious due diligence. It is also the case that no amount of due diligence can actually 100% guarantee that there will be no lapse in governance. At the end of the day, a startup, a company that is going through incubation will have tremendous degree of uncertainty around it. And sometimes what they report and what is the underlying reality, there are gaps, not necessarily because of malfeasance, but because of the very fast-moving nature of the business and uncertainties or confusion around the way various things have to be accounted for. But at the same time, there are, of course, cases of outright fraud. When there is a lot of capital, when there is a bubble-type behavior in chasing the next big idea, next big geography, chances are some people who have proclivity toward fraud will try to take full advantage of that. So whether it was during the dot-com years way back in 2001 or in the last few years when we see an enormous amount of capital going to private markets in India, chances are out of the 100 cases where capital goes in, 1, 2, 3, or 4 will have issues related to governance or fraud. That doesn't mean the sector ought to be tainted. That doesn't mean a certain class of investors need to be chastised. It's just a distribution of a bunch of outcomes. A couple of them are bound to be unfavorable. Having said that, the fact that we have a lot of cheap capital out there also meant that investors themselves have tolerance from some degree of failure or some losses because it's not been that expensive for them to raise that capital, and if some of it goes astray, doesn't matter. If the ones that go right return 2x, 3x, all those bad ideas will be papered over, no problem. The moment capital starts to become scarce and expensive, one will see capital providers become far more difficult in approving projects and giving risk capital to budding entrepreneurs. So I think with the way the world is evolving, interest rates going up, inflation going up, dollar funding not being as ample as it used to be, we will see, not because of these governance lapses that we've seen lately, but because of the overall change in the macro environment, a much tougher environment for capital raising for budding entrepreneurs. That will probably also hurt some startups, but at the same time, overall, it will make entrepreneurs more disciplined, more focused on the bottom line, forced to publish and present strong financials before they can get viable subsequent rounds of funding. So I think all in all, capital being a little more scarce and a little more expensive is a good thing. It prevents bubbles, it prevents distortions, it prevents misallocation of resources. So I think that the past of abandoned capital may have been great in terms of unleashing wave of entrepreneurial activities around the world, but the future where capital providers will be a little more judicious would not necessarily harm entrepreneurism. It'll just probably make the journey a little more challenging, but certainly not impossible.